You're watching Melt. Let's now turn the spotlight to FMCG. Earlier this month, Hindustan Unilever's deodorant brand Rexona launched the Rexona Breaking Limits Program. Targeted at the youth, the program leverages women's football to market the brand. Let's first have a look at the campaign film.
हमें अपने लड़की को खेलने के लिए मना नहीं करना चाहिए। यदि हम लोग ही मना करें तो वो लोग कैसे आगे बढ़ सकते हैं।
If we want to get to future FIFA World Cups, we need to grow the sport. We need girls to know that football is for them. This is just the beginning. We're not done yet.
And to know more, we are in conversation now with Ashwath Swaminathan, Head India for Oral Care and Deos at Hindustan Unilever. Why did Rexona choose to leverage football? How does the campaign benefit the brand? And what are the expected results? Let's find out as we get ready to melt with Ashwath Swaminathan. Hi Ashwath, welcome to Melt. Now let's begin with the brand's latest campaign in India. What are the objectives that the brand hopes to achieve with this campaign?
Hey Suresh, thank you for having me. And so let me start. As you know, Rexona is globally the #1 antiperspirant brand. And the purpose or the movement we want to inspire is get more people to have the confidence to move more. And which ties in beautifully with the personal care sponsorship of the FIFA World Cup. And it presented a great opportunity for Rexona to build on that purpose. So given the stat that in India less than 1% of girls play football, we really wanted to bring that stat to life and eventually change that statistic. So the purpose of the campaign really is to get more girls to engage with the beautiful sport of football. And why Rexona is best placed to do that is because we have a global program called the Breaking Limits Program, which is operational in 9 countries, where we train coaches, community leaders and teachers to empower women and girls to get more confidence to come out and play football. So that's really the big agenda with this campaign.
If I hear you correctly, there are 3 parts to this. One, there's the sport of football itself. Then there's women playing football. And then there's Indian women playing football. Now, football in itself is not the most popular sport in India. And within that, as a subset, women's football is likely to be even less popular. From what I understand, your target group in India is women. Am I right?
That's right.
Why would you target such a small target group of women who play football?
I think if you look at globally, football is the #1 watch sport. Over 3.5 billion people follow or are fans of football. And Rexona is the #1 antiperspirant. So the marriage between Rexona and football, I think, is perfect globally.
At a global level, absolutely.
And if you ask why in India is it such a big deal, football is still small, but it's growing. And over 40% of football viewership in India are still women. So it's not as small as we think it is. It's actually larger than we think and growing year on year. In fact, I think even in the last men's World Cup, they saw the Viacom team had said over 110 million people had watched football, assume 40% of them. So that's close to 40-50 million women in India watching football already. So that's a large number.
Ashwath, how would you measure the effectiveness of this campaign? Will it translate into sales automatically or will there be a lag?
We always wish everything translates into sale immediately, but I think the right thing for us to track is in a long term, we want that metric of less than 1% girls playing football to move. So that's the longer term objective. But in the immediate term for the campaign is we'd like as many people to watch the campaign and get awareness about this statistic and hopefully do something about it and change it. So we want at least 10 million views on this campaign to start with. And the actionable metric out of that is we want more and more coaches, teachers, and community leaders, like I said, to sign up for this Breaking Limits program and watch some of the digital training modules so that they can go out there and empower girls to come and out play football confidently.
Would it be right if I said that 10 million views, that would be the most valuable benchmark for you for this campaign as a metric?
That's right. To start with, that would be the most valuable.
In your view, is the Indian Rexona consumer actively engaged with football?
Like I said, I won't talk about it as Rexona consumer, but the Indian women audience is certainly starting to engage a lot more with football. And therefore, does it make sense for Rexona? The answer is yes. The Rexona audience is anybody who sweats. You, me, anyone out here. And in India, given a tropical country, everyone does. Yeah. But we specifically, communicate and reach out to the younger women audiences who go to college, office goers, and the reason is obvious. They're the ones who are on the move, use public transport a lot more, and therefore the bother of sweat is highest with them. And before you may even ask why not men first, I think women's grooming standards typically tend to be higher, which is why we're trying to reach out to them first. And we're seeing that the adoption of antiperspirants has been far greater there and is at an accelerated pace. So that's the reason I think young women on the move would be our core audience.
Let's define this Rexona customer a little more. Is there an urban, rural or an urban, non-urban split in this consumer base?
Majority, I think all of it will be urban at this point, given that the roll-on or antiperspirant penetration in country is less than 5%. So we'll start at the top, right? So the most affluent premium consumers, get them to change behavior, adopt this format, and then slowly trickle down. So it'll be more urban, more affluent, maybe more metro focused first before we go down the pop strata.
Okay, Ashwath, what are the typical purchase patterns and media consumption habits of this target group?
Nothing surprising that you and I won't know already. I mean, these are consumers who are, digitally savvy, following and using a lot of social media, YouTube, content online. So in fact, in our media mix, we use a lot of connected TV and digital communication to reach out to them. TV is, of course, also a large reach medium for these women, but digital is certainly the hottest place to reach out to these women. We have a large influencer program that we keep running on Rexona because we realize that educating women through content creators and the hygiene habit of using a roll-on is really, really effective. And so we'll continue to do a lot more of that given these digitally connected consumer and audience.
Influencers versus celebs, where do you stand on this? Is it either or, both equally effective?
I think both have different roles and tasks depending on the job to be done. And in this case, we're working with both famous actors, football players in the Indian women's football team, certainly who have the authority and the right to talk about, this campaign and educate more women to go out and play. So a mix of both, yes.
Is there a particular trend or insight or behavior pattern perhaps that sets the Indian deodorant market apart from its global peers?
Good question. I think for the size of our population, the deo market in India is very, very small. The deodorant penetration in India is 11%, with men a bit higher, and with women slightly lower, and particularly in the antiperspirant format, despite all our hot and humid conditions, is sub 5%. So, whereas globally, despite the fact that, especially in the developed economies of the West, where the weather tends to be a bit drier, colder, antiperspirant usage is very, very high. So our big task and opportunity ahead is to educate more people on the benefits of an antiperspirant and a roll-on in particular to drive adoption of this format. So the headroom to grow is huge.
What do you think will drive that growth?
I think more brands coming in and putting in resource and effort behind the education and development of the market will certainly drive it. I think one small brand alone is not going to do it. If more and more players come in, of course, that means competition, but just means that more consumers will get to hear about the format and therefore more people will adopt it.
Now let's talk about football itself. As a marketer, what is the opportunity and potential you see in football in India?
I think, like you said, football is popular globally, but small in India. So therein lies the opportunity and the challenge. Because it's small, it's niche and it's targeted. It goes after a very clear set of niche premium audiences. So that's good. But equally, that means as it builds scale, there's going to be a lot more investment and other brands and marketeers coming into this. So how do we stay committed, consistent and invested in the sport is really the challenge for us.
Let's talk about Unilever Global for a minute. Now, Unilever's personal care brands are working with FIFA and launching several initiatives with them. What learnings from your global peers and the kind of initiatives they're doing are relevant to India?
So we've all started activating this sponsorship over the last 30, 45 days. So we don't yet have big learnings on the impact, but I think we're all optimistic that if we do the right things behind, driving the adoption of football amongst women, which is what Rexona is doing across 9 countries. And similarly, other brands are taking on a similar challenge based on their brand purpose in space. So too early to call out learnings, but I think we're all going to stay committed over the next 4-year journey in the partnership with FIFA to make something out of it.
From a marketer's perspective, how would you divide your time, resources, and money for 2 kinds of things? One, a cause-led campaign like the film that you've just embarked upon, or the campaign you've embarked upon, versus a more, say, nuts and bolts education campaign like you spoke about. How to use the deo, what are the conditions to use it in, what are the mechanics of the product itself? How do you allocate resources to these 2 kind of campaigns?
I think the simple answer is the first rupee must go behind the nuts and bolts education, because that's more hardworking on education of the format, usage, giving reason for consumers to adopt the format. But things like these are always slightly larger than the category, and impact is beyond just the category. So that's where the second rupee would go, is what I'd say. I won't put a percentage to it. It also varies by the brand size and the stature in the country. But at this stage in India, we do a lot more of the nuts and bolts education than things like this.
All right, Ashwath Swaminathan of HUL, thank you very much for being with us on Melt.
Thank you, Suresh. Thank you for having me.
And with that, it's a wrap on this episode. You can follow Melt on social media. The handle is Ready to Melt, or simply log on to readytomelt.com. If you'd like to follow me, I'm @Suvenk on Twitter or X. Till next week, goodbye and thanks for watching.